Welcome to the May 3rd, 2018 Murfreesboro City Council. Today is National Day of Prayer. We've had many different services all over our community. I think the number that I was told, there are 90,000 different events over our country today for National Day of Prayer. So it's definitely been a blessed day in Murfreesboro. With that, Councilman Shacklet has our prayer and our pledge.
Yes, Mayor. You know, I think something we can all agree upon is that we live in a special place, but what makes this place really special is the people that live in our community. And I happen to be reading an article in one of our local magazines about an organization and a group of people that got together, saw a need in our community, and proceeded to meet that need on their own, not looking for somebody ought to do it. Well, they decided they were going to do it. So I want to introduce you, Joel, Joel Bigelow with Endure Athletics is going to tell us a little bit about what they do, and then he's going to do our opening prayer. So welcome, Joel.
Thank you for that. I appreciate being here today. Our organization is called Endure Athletics, and we serve the homeless children and youth that live right here in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. Currently, there's about 1,200 homeless children right here in Rutherford County, and while we may not see them out on the streets and on the street corners, they're down the road on South Church Street in our different motels. I think, Chief, I'm sure you're very aware of all these other different locations throughout town. Endure started 3 years ago. I worked at Steel Technologies right behind the Regal Inn on South Church Street, and that's how all this began to begin with, just seeing the amount of kids that are there at bus stops, seeing them getting handouts of food in the parking lot right in front of where I work. And so we started, and we're 3 years in. We do an after-school program. We do a 9-week summer camp for all the kids. And one of the most special things that we do is we do a ton of work at the university at MTSU. We have a great relationship with exercise science there. We tailgate at all the MTSU football games and just exposing these kids to what their futures could look like. Our oldest is a senior. He has a 3.1 GPA. He lived in the Regal Inn for 7 years. He's now registered for MTSU, and he will be attending in the fall. And I just think that's the direction that we want to continue to go. We use sport as the hook, go out and play, love on the kids, build that relationship, and just help them, give them the direction of hopefully changing their lives and helping our city out at the same time.
That's awesome. Would you lead our opening prayer?
Dear God, Lord, we love you. We thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Lord, thank you for allowing me to speak about the work that you are doing through Endure Athletics. God, I ask that you continue to keep your hand on each and every leader in our community. God, give them the wisdom that they need to continue to move our city forward. Lord, we thank you and we love you. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe. And if Joel looks familiar, Joel is the younger brother of Jamie Bigelow, who is a captain at Station 10 with our Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department. All right, you've got several items on the consent agenda. We've got a few that want to bring your attention. Under the airport manager, item A needs to be withdrawn. And under recommendations of the human resource director, item B needs to be withdrawn. Any other additions or deletions to the consent agenda?
With those exceptions, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll now consider for passage on second and final reading Ordinance 17 OZ 62 to amend conditions applicable to approximately 12.1 acres in the Planned Unit Development PUD District along Fortress Boulevard, Parcel F of Victory Station PUD 2017-444.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into first readings. You have a letter from the Water Resource Board regarding fiscal year 2022 pro forma review. Mr. Gore.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. I have a slideshow. This is normally the time of year that I come to you with our water and sewer ordinance to raise rates. I'll jump to the end of the story and tell you we're not recommending a rate increase this year. We do have, however, some non-residential connection fees that are in the ordinance before you, and I just want to go through those to acquaint you with what we're asking for. First off, we did do our fiscal year 17 cost of service study. We did over-recover 7.3%. That's the green bar on the right versus our rate revenue requirements in the orange bar. That gives you an idea that since 2013, we have over-recovered on our revenue versus what we were required. This is the pro forma. We plugged that into that $2.8 million is the over-recovery. This is a base pro forma as though we would not incur any debt. We would have a $2.4 million increase over the next 5 years of added expenses based on our 10-year extrapolated trends, but we would have a $4.4 million reduction in debt in fiscal year 22. So what that equates to is we would still, with no rate increase, we would have an over-recovery in water of 105% overall, and in sewer we'd have 117% over-recovery. We also ran a pro forma as though we would have a $35 million debt issuance to cover our biosolids facilities and the Northeast Regional Pump Station. You can see there again, we would have a $2.4 million. Those expenses would be operating expenses. But we would only see a net $2.3 million in reduction of debt. This still equates to, however, with no rate increase, 105% over recovery in the water, and the sewer recovers at 108%. So this is the reason we're not recommending a rate increase at this time. I do want to go and show you our affordability curves. Right now, on average, we have 5,700 gallons per month of water used on a residential customers, and 4,700 gallons a month in sewer. That equates to about a $65.50 per month bill. The purple dots represent the very low income earner. That is 4% of a very low income earner. Very low income earner is defined as 50% of the median value, not the median value in Murfreesboro, but half of the median. So it's really the first quartile. So you can see that our current rate design for up to a 5-person family, we do stay within that 4% affordability index. Well, this kind of goes more into what the ordinance is talking about. To define rates in a nutshell, that's what I just kind of went through. We go through our annual budget. What do we have to collect on a monthly basis to cover our annual expenses? We also have, you may hear them called connection fees. These are really system capacity buy-in fees, and they're different from rates. We set up our collection and distribution system have a certain system capacity. We do a value and capacity analysis, and then we see what new customer capacity needs are, and then you have a capacity buy-in. This is a one-time payment, typically at the time that the building permit is issued. In some cases, a certificate of occupancy, we collect that system capacity fee. What we're proposing in the ordinance to change, right now we went through and looked at, we do restaurants on number of seats available in the restaurant. We looked at Logan's, Chili's, and O'Charlie's. And what they've total paid based on the current ordinance is $23,280. What their total cost by usage is $56,000. That's where that 2.41 multiplier comes into play. So what we're proposing in this ordinance is to increase the water per seat charge from $35 to $65, and the per seat sewer from $55 to $110. You can see that multiplier is those multipliers are below a little bit below of what we could justify. just a few of these, because these are kind of a little bit different. The hotel motel, you can see we looked at a Hampton Inn, Comfort Inn, Sleep Inn. They're on average were about half of what they should have been paying for the total cost by usage. So we're proposing again to go from $175 to $350 per room on water, and $400 to $800 per room sewer. And again, that's right there at that 2.0 multiplier. The healthcare facilities is a per bed charge. We're right at 2.15 on what they pay right now per the ordinance versus their total cost by usage. We're looking at, again, doubling those, 270 to 540 and 400 to 800. Last one, schools, a per student. That multiplier is a 3.185 versus total what they pay per current ordinance versus total cost by usage. But we are just, again, kind of asking for those to be doubled from $8, that should be per student, to $16 on water and $12 per student on sewer to $24 per student. We also have some car wash, and the car washes are a little bit different. We are asking for those to be tripled from their current values. That is well below what they currently use. These modern car washes use a substantial amount of water, and if we charge them what we could charge them justifiably, but it would be they would be outside the market. We just could not. We would overcharge them based on what our neighboring communities are charging them. So we're just asking for that amount to be tripled. I don't have that on here, but so again, the recommendations are we don't recommend any rate increases, but we do recommend those increases on those non-residential system capacity buy-in fees. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Aaron, how do you come up with the student count for the schools when you look at a school that's opening up and the population may significantly increase as the city continues to grow? Is there a factor in there that as they increase, the rate changes, or is it just on initial occupancy?
It's initial occupancy. We really don't have, if we know of a large increase or expansion of the school, we could go in and audit it at that time, but we don't annually or biannually go in and see if the head count or the student count has increased in the schools. We look at initial occupancy and charge based on that.
How does this put us in the market compared to our neighbors?
Well, we're every other, all of our neighbors typically charge by meter size, and they don't charge by the gallons per day discharged or consumed by some of these facilities. I think that we are, on our residential connection fees, we're in the market. We had a stakeholder meeting. We invited a couple of dozen commercial realtors, commercial builders to come in and talk with us. There was only a couple that showed up, Blake Smith and Joe Swanson, Jr. And we went through this presentation with them, and they saw the equity of it and the fairness of it. I can't say that I've done an in-depth analysis of our market community, our peer communities, though.
So Darren,
these rates haven't been changed. These rates haven't been changed since 1998 on the non-residential, on these kind of unique developments that I brought up. So that was one of the criticisms we did receive, is you guys need to, if you're going to do this, probably do it more routinely versus every 20 years or so.
So it's just on the initial kind of a setup fee that it's changing for those commercials? It's not. So if there's a restaurant, I mean, I noticed you had a couple on there. Mm-hmm. We're not changing what those that are already open at all.
No, sir. That when someone comes in and buys capacity based on what we had in the ordinance at that time, they're effectively grandfathered. We don't go back and retroactively upcharge them. And the rate, yes, their water and sewer rates are not affected. It's a one-time buy-in fee.
So
an interesting concept of saying raise it incrementally as opposed to every 20 years, because incrementally they would have been paying for the last 20 years at a higher rate than what they've currently paid, and they would have worked themselves up to where they're at currently. So basically, they've saved everything
right.
up until this point.
True.
And from this point forward, they would be paying where they should be. So it's an interesting concept to want to have regular increases in your rates versus having them spaced out as far as you possibly can.
There's no more questions. I'll move we approve.
We need to consider on passage for first reading ordinance 18023, amending the Murfreesboro City Code, Chapter 33, Water and Sewer, Section 33-2, 33-50 regarding water and sewer tap and connection fees, and adding Section 3344 regarding step sewer user fees.
Move for approval.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Gore.
Thank you.
We now need to consider for approval renewal certificate of compliance for wine and retail stores. You have Walter Renee Horton at Aldi, number 41, 1640 Robert Rose Drive. Ms. Wright, is everything in order?
It is.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. You now have Patrick Trueheart at Sprouts Farmers Market, number 581, 143 Windlewood Drive.
Move for approval.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Pursuant to Resolution 18R-PH 17 adopted by the City Council on March 15, 2018, we need to conduct a public hearing to consider, 1, the adoption of plan of services for an annexation of 17.96 acres, and 2, the zoning of approximately 17.96 acres along Twin Oak Drive to single-family residential 6, RH6 district, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Mitchell Bowman of Rutherford County Habitat for Humanity applicants. Notice of said public hearing was published in the April 17, 2018 issue of a local newspaper. Donald.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Staff has received a petition for annexation from Mitchell Bowman for 2 parcels located along the east side of Twin Oak Drive, north of Halls Hill Pike. Those are highlighted in orange on your screen. The property has a total area of just under 18 acres. It is contiguous with the existing city boundary on the west and is located within the city's urban growth boundary. There are a couple of service issues that are discussed in the plan of services. First, city sewer service is not currently available to this property. The applicant has been working with neighboring property owners to the west to secure easements that would allow for an extension of an existing sewer line to this site. The applicant has obtained verbal permission from those property owners and is currently in the process of obtaining written easement agreements. If this annexation request is approved on first reading tonight, we will hold the second reading until such time that the applicant can furnish us with documentation of recorded easement agreements. A second issue in the plan of services is a requirement from the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department that a fire hydrant be installed on the site prior to the issuance of any building permit. This is a fairly standard requirement for any development that is somewhat removed geographically from an existing fire hydrant. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for this item on November 1st, 2017, and then voted unanimously on March 7th, 2018, to send this request forward to you with a favorable recommendation. There is a companion rezoning request, and we'll have more remarks about that as you progress to that on the agenda. Staff can answer any questions that you may have before or after the public hearing.
Any questions for Mr. Anthony? Okay, before we open the public hearing, if you're wishing to speak for or against, when you come to the podium, if you would please state your name and address. If you have any questions, if you'll state your questions, we'll get those answered at the end of the public hearing. If you'll direct your comments to the council If you're representing an individual, you'll have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, you'll have 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, this is the plan of services and the annexation of approximately 17.96 acres along Twin Oaks Drive. Please come to the podium. Okay, seeing none, we'll consider for adoption Resolution 18R-PS17 to adopt a plan of services for approximately 17.96 acres along Twin Oak Drive. Mitchell Bowman is the applicant, 2018-5.
Move for approval.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll now consider for adoption Resolution 18RA17 to annex approximately 17.96 acres along Twin Oak Drive and to incorporate the same with the corporate boundaries of the city of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Mitchell Bowman, applicant, 2018-513.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Mr. Anthony, now we'll go into the zoning request.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. The rezoning request is for the same property. Rutherford County Habitat for Humanity has requested that the city rezone these 17.96 acres to RS6 simultaneous with annexation. This would allow for the development of a neighborhood that would consist of Habitat for Humanity homes to be built over the course of several years. There is a concept plan for the development, and it shows 74 potential lots on this site, and I'll let the applicant talk more about that in a moment. As a reminder, RS6 is a relatively new zoning district that allows 6,000 square foot lots. But in exchange for that, we do get minimum front setbacks of 35 feet to accommodate additional vehicles in the driveway. And unlike our other residential districts, we do have minimum masonry or cementitious siding requirements for 75% of each facade in the RS6 district. The adjacent zoning includes RSA1 on the west and County RM, or medium density residential, on all other sides. Murfreesboro 2035 classifies the property as undeveloped, meaning that when the plan was formulated, development on this property was not anticipated for at least 20 years. So unfortunately, I don't think Murfreesboro 2035 is going to be of a whole lot of guidance on this particular rezoning request. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for this item on November 1st, 2017, and then voted unanimously on March 7th, 2018 to send this request to you with a favorable recommendation. As with the annexation request, due to the lack of easements for the sewer extension, should you approve the rezoning tonight, we'll hold the second reading until we get documentation of those easements. I do want to recognize Mark Lee with SEC, who's here representing Habitat, as well as Terry Schultz, who is with Habitat for Humanity, and I think they would like to speak for just a moment to tell you a little bit about their vision for this property. And staff can answer any questions that you may have before or after the public hearing. And I'm going to try to get their presentation pulled up here.
Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Mayor McFarland, members of the council. I'm Mark Lee with SEC, and we are representing Habitat for Humanity. Habitat local affiliate will be the developer, and Terry Schultz, the executive director, is here with us tonight. And also, Old South Properties is going to be assisting Habitat through the development process. And here tonight is Dan Bobo of Old South Properties. Currently, the property is located about a quarter mile north of Halls Hill Pike on Twin Oaks Drive, and it's covered by about 2/3 low growth and about 1/3 trees. There's also some surface rock visible, as you would imagine, being right next to the Hoover Rock Quarry. There are no structures on the property. We are planning on having 2 access points onto Twin Oaks Drive. and we'll also connect the roads of the development to neighboring properties. We propose a stormwater management pond at the southwest corner of the property, which is a low point. And we will have entry landscaping around a sign, an entry sign, and also have some landscape buffers along Twin Oaks Drive. We will have interconnected streets with sidewalks on all streets on both sides, allowing walkability throughout the neighborhood. There will be approximately 74, 75 lots. We haven't done a boundary survey on it to know exactly what our limits are. We've used tax roll information, and it appears we can get in the mid-70s lot count-wise. The lots will be very close in size to Eastwood Section 4, which is across the street. Habitat plans on developing about 20 lots, 20 lot sections. They usually build 8 to 10 houses per year, so a section should last a couple of years. And Habitat will be the only one building houses in this subdivision. We're anticipating needing a HOA to maintain the landscaping and the stormwater management pond. Just so you all know, that Habitat builds quality houses that are very affordable to its clients, and they're Energy Star rated, and they'll help. That Energy Star rating will help the homeowners have a significantly low monthly utility bill as far as electricity goes. We intend on calling this development Legacy Point, and our intention is to provide stable, safe, and quality homes with an affordable mortgage in a livable, attractive community. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I have a lot more that I could say, but I don't want to take any more of your time than I have to. So feel free to ask me any questions you may have.
Mr. Lee, I got one question, or maybe two, but do you, just make sure I'm clear on something, all of the houses that are in this subdivision right here, they will all be Habitat houses eventually? Is that the way I heard that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you said it would be about 20, how many per year? Did you say 8?
We presently build at a rate of about 8 to 10 houses per year. Mm-hmm. So we expect to do a 20 lot section, so that should last a couple of years.
But then you've got more land to do other sections
right
after that with this plat, right?
Right.
Is that, okay, that's what I was.
I'm glad you asked that. Habitat, we have several friends in the community, and one of them being the city of Murfreesboro, and they help us with lots, and we really appreciate that. But sometimes the lots don't come as much as the people that need the houses.
Sure.
They don't come as quick, and so we see the need. We've been seeing the need for some time to develop our own subdivision, and we've tried to tiptoe into that with buying a block of property that we might be able to get 4 lots out of. But this will be our first larger development.
Well, on that note, as far as the city trying to support what you guys are doing, I would ask if between not necessarily tonight, but between now and maybe second reading, if there's anything that we can do to help out with as far as the affordability in these things, whether that means relax the design guidelines a little bit or something, whatever, some things like that we could do. Maybe that's worth you guys discussing, and maybe we'll get with Mr. Whitaker between next week or something, but I don't know how that would work out. But
Councilman, I really appreciate that's a very good gesture. We want to be good neighbors in Murfreesboro, and we don't feel like the standards that we have to perform to are unreasonable, and we want to have nice-looking houses that people are proud of living in.
Sure.
And I can't think of anything that we would want to ask be relaxed.
Very good.
we're proud of the houses that we build, and people are proud that they have put in 300 to 400 hours of sweat equity into their house and their neighbors' houses as well. And we think this neighborhood will be one that the entire neighborhood will be proud of living in.
Mr. Lee, will we continue, I know a lot of the Habitat houses have been in blighted areas where we're trying to upgrade the neighborhoods and lots that were just vacant throughout the community in the past. Will this diminish the ability to continue to build those homes? Will the focus be primarily on this project, or will we continue to see you building homes at multiple locations?
That's a very good question, and I think our Executive Director, Terry Schultz, might be able to answer that one. I couldn't answer that one.
Good afternoon. The plan is to predominantly build in this subdivision so that we can have more control of our families, more control of the subdivisions themselves and the type of homes that we want to put there. Some of the issues we've come across when we do infill lots is we don't have, we can't go back and control how they maintain their home or what's going on in the home. And when we're in a subdivision with a homeowners association, that should alleviate some of those issues that we currently see when we do infill lots. Yes, we do have an inventory of lots we can use for situations where it calls for us to build there, but predominantly we will be building in this subdivision.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Lee and Ms. Schultz?
There's no change in the protocol, the Habitat formula for how these are going to be developed. You're going to follow that same.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is remarkable what you have done. The work of Habitat in our community has transformed people's lives, and I commend you for that. And it's going to be exciting to see how this larger project impacts our community. Affordable housing has been an issue as to how we were addressing that. It was a concern of our 2035 plan, and I'm encouraged that we're looking at opportunities like this to address that issue. But you're certainly a vital part of our community, and the work that you do needs to be commended.
I did ditto all the comments, and if no further comments, I move for approval.
We need to have the public hearing first on the
Yes.
zoning. Then we can do that.
Okay?
All right, we'll now need to conduct a public hearing to consider rezoning approximately 17.96 acres along Twin Oaks Drive as single-family residential 6 RS6 district simultaneous with annexation. Rutherford County Habitat for Humanity is the applicant. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll consider for passage on first reading Ordinance 18OZ17 to zone an area along Twin Oaks Drive as single-family residential 6 RS6 district simultaneous with annexation. Ms. Skills-Harris.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright.
Vice Mayor Skels-Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you. Pursuant to Resolution 18RPH18, adopted by the City Council on March 15, 2018, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider the adoption of a plan of services for an annexation of 145.2 acres and two zoning of approximately 145.2 acres along Bradyville Pike and Vills Road to Planned Residential Development PRD District, Carter's Retreat PRD, and zoning of approximately 0.1 acre to single-family residential RS10 District, which have been proposed to be annexed to the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Kenneth S. Carter and Sourceland LLC are the applicants. Notice to said public hearing was published in the April 17, 2018 issue of a local newspaper. Mr. Blomley.
Good evening, Mayor McFarland and members of council. This public hearing is with regards to the annexation and plan of services for property that's located along Bradyville Pike. You can see the main portion that was the main parcel that was the impetus for this annexation study is the large parcel colored in blue that has frontage on both Bradyville Pike and Vills Road. As you can see, by itself, it's not contiguous with the existing city limits, and therefore, we studied the right-of-way of Vills Road from the intersection of Bradyville Pike all the way to touching the north side of the subject property. There's also some right-of-way of Bradyville Pike that we have included in the study area as well. So in total, the study area is 145.2 acres, and that includes the 134-acre large parcel, as well as 2,400 linear feet of Bradyville Pike right-of-way south of the subject property, at 2,000 linear feet of Bradyville Pike right-of-way closer into town, and approximately 4,900 linear feet of Veals Road right-of-way. One thing that I did want to call your attention to is in the legal notice, an old map was used. It was the map that originally went to the Planning Commission and consisted of right-of-way of Veals Road all the way to the eastern edge of the subject property. It was staff's recommendation at the Planning Commission meeting to scale it back to this point right here, as the proposed development does not have any access onto Veals Road, so our engineering department recommended that we not take in that segment of Veals Road. However, an old map was used in the legal notices, and that was our error in providing the wrong map to the legal department when the legal notice was made. But the Planning Commission actually did recommend just to this point right here, and so what you have before you on the screen, and what Ms. Machodo has laid out before you is the corrected map with the right-of-way of Veals Road to be annexed that the Planning Commission actually recommended. Also included is a small 10-foot strip that I've circled right there. That was one of the 10-foot strips that we annexed a while back in order to keep an island of county from being surrounded by the city limits. Our legal department has since advised us that state law no longer requires us or no longer prohibits islands from being islands of county from being created. And you'll recall there are situations where we tried to close the loop on that, and we're looking for ways to go ahead and do that. This is a 10-foot strip in the Brady Estates subdivision. If we didn't close the loop on this and annex that 10-foot strip now, when those lots are platted, the back 10 feet of their lot will be in the county and the rest of the lot will be in the city. So it just makes sense to go ahead and include that in there now in order to keep there from being confusion in the future. And I think in the future what we'll try to do is bring more of these 10-foot strips that we've left out with future annexations to close the loop on those as well, on the advice of our legal department. The plan of services for the subject property is in your agenda packets. It has been revised based on the Planning Commission's action to show the revised study area regarding the right-of-way on Veals Road. I will mention that city sewer is not currently available to serve the subject property. The developers are proposing to use a step system, and they have been in contact with the Murfreesboro Water Resources Department, and the Water Resources Department is aware of their plans. Also of note, there are existing structures on the subject property right on Bradyville Pike. Those existing structures do not currently have access to a fire hydrant and in close enough proximity to the structures according to the city fire marshal. And so the city fire marshal is recommending that a fire hydrant be installed prior to the effective date of annexation, a fire hydrant that can provide fire protection to those structures on the subject property. So if the planning committee, or excuse me, if the city council approves the annexation and the companion zoning request, we would hold the second reading of the zoning request until such time as the fire marshal has been able to verify that a fire hydrant has been installed according to his wishes. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this annexation and plan of services either before or after the public hearing. The Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing on this matter and unanimously recommended 5-0 to recommend approval of the annexation and the plan of services to the City Council.
Where do they get the water for the hydrant?
CUD. CUD has water lines in the area. It would just be a matter of installing the fire hydrant to use those water lines that are there.
Can I ask just a quick, so when you look at the plan of services and you see how far that is from the city limits, why would this not, if they're going to do a step system, why would this just not be something that would be better to keep in the county? Because, I mean, you look at the subdivisions that are around that, the likelihood of those coming into the city, I mean, looks like there's a 12-lot subdivision right next to it that we couldn't serve. So why would they want to come into the city if they're doing a step plan anyway?
I think I would have to let the applicants answer that question.
Okay, well, this is for the annexation and plan of services, but it looks, I'll ask that when we get to the next step. All right, we'll need to conduct a public hearing conduct a public hearing on the plan of services for an annexation of approximately 145.2 acres along Bradyville Pike and Bills Road. Kenneth S. Carter is the applicant. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll consider for adoption resolution 18 RPS 18 to adopt a plan of services for approximately 145.2 acres along Bradyville Pike and Bills Road. Kenneth S. Carter is the applicant.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Matthew, can I ask a question before I make a decision on
Yes, sir.
That's when you want to ask your question.
the picture that we're looking at in front of us with the screen? I think it's the one that one. At the top of the screen there it says city limits, and then right below it looks like a basketball goal. I think there's a property on that particular lot, and then just to the left of that or to the west of that would be where we've recently located a cell tower. Is that correct?
Well, the cell tower is in the county, but Mr. Smotherman, I'm glad you did bring that up because there actually is a tract in orange that I have on a separate map. This came before you in the fall, and we are holding second reading on the zoning on the tracts that are in orange, while the developer obtains a water line easement. And also the large tract with the basketball goal where the X is, we have had conversations with folks who are looking at that tract for development. So I think that while it does seem somewhat disconnected right now, I think that there's interest in that area, and I think it's only a matter of time before we see additional things in that area that make it seem not so remote from the existing city limits.
Yeah, a couple months ago we approved that?
In orange, I think that was in November or December that came before the city council.
Yeah, so we've already got coverage on Bills Road, and then this one large vacant property there, I'm looking at it on Google Maps, there's nothing on it except for farmland. I think there's tremendous potential of it becoming subdivided in a neighborhood there, which if that's the case, then I think there is the opportunity that this would truly be connected to the city at that point. We're running the line down Bills Road now. Is that required that we put that there because we're creating some islands further up the road there where there's a church on the corner and a mosque, I guess, behind it, and some other properties there. Are we creating an island with those if we draw this line across there, or would we be better off to wait till the property that's currently proposed for annexation comes in and then draw the line from there down to the currently proposed property?
We would be creating an island. There would be an island here and an island here if these annexations are approved. This annexation on its own, if I'll go back to the other slide, because what was in orange has not been officially annexed yet, this annexation on its own that we have here before us tonight would not officially create an island where the church and the mosque are located. But if the area in orange that we're holding off on because of the water line easement comes in, then those would be indeed an island. But I think our legal department has indicated to us that is not prohibited any longer, and Mr. Tyndall may wish to
would we be better off? Would we be better off to leave that spider leg or whatever the term is we use these days for that? Would we be better off just to leave that out?
Well, from a legal standpoint, the statutes were changed not last session, but the year before, that it doesn't prohibit creation of an island. So that's why we are no longer, as Matthew said, taking the 10-foot strips, and we're trying to clean those up as we go forward. So it doesn't present a problem from a legal standpoint. From a services standpoint and everything else, islands still present the same problems they've always presented, which is why the legislature at one point stepped in and stopped them. So
I get it. And the proposed project, the one that was up there previously in orange, it does have a step system approved for it, right? If it's actually developed.
It's right on the minimum number of lots in order for a step system to be developed. I do want to go back to the spider leg, if you will. The area here at the intersection of Veals and Bradyville. There was a reason why we included the right-of-way on Bradyville south of that intersection. That intersection comes in at a very awkward angle right now. Mr. Balachandra might not like me using such a non-technical term, such as awkward angle, but we wanted to get that intersection in. If we were going to be annexing to connect this property to the city limits, we wanted to get the right-of-way in that would be necessary to perhaps improve that intersection at some point in the future, just because it doesn't come at the most ideal angle. Now, and one thing that I did want to mention, our major thoroughfare or our major transportation plan that was adopted in the fall does show two road improvements for this area as well. There is one of our midterm improvements is the improvement of this section of Bradyville Pike from Rutherford Boulevard eastward as a 3-lane cross section, and also there is the extension of Irby Lane, which would kind of go like this as a short-term improvement. I believe I'll look for Mr. Kerr. That's a short-term improvement. No timetable, of course, on that, but so there are some road improvements on our major transportation plan that would also appear to assist with this with future growth in the area.
Does that Irby Lane extension go back to Rutherford Boulevard? Is that?
Yes, sir. Or not Rutherford Boulevard. It curves up to the north, intersects with John Bragg and East Main Street.
What kind of time frame do we have on the other piece that was in orange, the pending piece? What we're waiting on second reading since November already?
Yeah, it's what the developer is having to do is you'll see these lots here. I'm not sure what that cul-de-sac is, but it's the last cul-de-sac south of Lincoya Drive. He's in the process of acquiring a water line easement along the east side of those lots to extend water from Lincoya Drive to his tracts. And so I think he's even considering purchasing one of the lots in order to make that happen. But he hasn't secured all those easements yet. So that's the holdup for that piece.
So I was having trouble getting through my computer here to get back to, I keep losing my connection for some reason, but I was trying to get back to the plan of services. Is there, are we taking on any cost as far as Veals Road goes and the annexation of all that to bring it up to our city standards or any of those kinds of things? I mean, the angle of the road, is that going to become our cost?
I think that's something that as far as that intersection, I think it's something that our transportation and engineering departments would look at on an as-needed basis. This particular development, as we'll see in the zoning request, actually has no access onto Veals Road. And that's one of the reasons why we limited the amount of right-of-way adjacent to the tract, including in the annexation, because it doesn't actually have any access to Veals Road. I think that as if we do annex that right-of-way of Veals Road, there would certainly be maintenance costs, routine maintenance costs that would go into paving, any kind of resurfacing that might be needed in the future. I don't know that there would be any immediate reconstruction of Veals Road, routine maintenance costs, I would imagine.
I mean, is that reflected in the plan of services, the cost that we'll be incurring? Because isn't that typically part of it? I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Is
I think the plan of services mentions that it would become our responsibility to maintain. I don't know that could be fully quantified, not knowing when failures might occur, when potholes might occur, but it would just go into our normal protocol for road maintenance.
So on plan of services, I was just, it's roughly 7,000 linear feet from Rutherford Boulevard. So just say 1 3/4 miles from Rutherford Boulevard to this property. And then if we go Bradyville, it's almost 2 miles. And I'm just having trouble on service delivery. Get something that's that far out, how we're going to, on a county road that they're not going to fix anytime soon, and Veals Road, how are we going to deliver services out there? I mean, the fire trucks, police, garbage trucks. I mean, I know we can provide services, but I don't know how efficiently we're going to be doing that. I don't know. It's just
The development only has access on Bradyville Pike, so I think the usage of rolling city services using Veals Road would be minimal. I think that they would be using Bradyville Pike, which is a state right-of-way.
Do you see Bradyville widen anytime soon?
It's a midterm improvement. Mr. Kerr may have to address that.
Let's take it out.
Any other questions on the plan of services? We'll need to conduct a public hearing on the plan and then move to the annexation. All right. We've already had the public hearing, so we've got a motion, but I don't think we have a second.
Is there a motion?
I think Kurt had a motion, didn't he, Mr. Rose? Yep.
Okay, so
Is there a second?
make sure I'm square on this. We've done annexation. Now we're doing, we've done plan of services.
We've had
now is annexation.
We've had a public hearing for plan of services and annexation, but we're now voting on the plan of services, and we have a motion, but it doesn't look like we defer it.
We'll make a motion if it is done.
Okay, all right, so the plan of services is gonna fail for lack of a second. That motion will.
Well,
If there's not a second, Kurt, will you withdraw your motion and let me make another motion?
okay, what are you going to withdraw it to?
I would like to make a motion to defer until some of the questions can be answered as far as the property that we currently have that's waiting on its second reading, and to see how that develops before because I think if we bring that in and there's any chance that the property to the east of it were developed, I'd be a lot more comfortable voting in favor of this. Without that, I think I'm going to have a hard time voting in favor of it. So
it kind of seems to me, and I may be seeing this wrong, but it kind of seems that the annexation of the Veals Road property is, we're even considering it because of this hanging out there that from December and November, that property. I mean, it seems like it's just hanging there because of the consideration that we have something in front of it, because there's no access from this property to Veals Road.
I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more clarity on the whole whether or not we need to annex Veals Road completely or not. I'm not sure we wouldn't be better off. Well, I don't
I'm
wanna
not
say
sure
that.
if we annex it, then we're going to be in a scenario that we have taken over the responsibility for its upkeep for a road that doesn't access the property that we're
that's what I
approving.
There's no access for the property that's
And I think that needs to be cleared up before we discuss it any further. So I'm going to make a motion that we defer.
Second.
Mr. Tindall, before we vote on this, because I can't remember what will this do to the annexation and then the public hearing on the annexation we've already had, but what will this do to the zoning if we're deferring on the plan of services?
Well, we wouldn't take up the zoning tonight.
Okay.
I think because the plan of services didn't pass, so we would just defer the entire matter until a later date. And it would just have to come back anew to council to consider.
Would there be a different?
Yeah, we'd have a new public hearing on the plan of services.
Okay. Again,
Seems like we should, yeah. Just have nothing passed. And
can I
All the way
ask, can I
back
ask
through the
staff a
planning
question?
commission or just here?
No, just here.
Yeah,
It doesn't need to go to the planning commission.
Mr. Blomley, can I ask you a question? So,
Planning commission, no.
It would go back to the planning commission if there were significant changes to it.
we go through a lot of plan of services and annexations and then zoning requests. And, I think we all try to do the best we can when we look at these developments. But and maybe I want to understand the rationale, but we're annexing a substandard county road that we're going to be responsible for to get to a development that's 2 miles away from Rutherford Boulevard. I mean, so what benefit does the city have in taking on that road just to get back to this development?
It's not even going to be used for the development.
And we're not even, it's not even going to be used for, we can't annex 99, or 90, I guess it'd be 99.
Right of the pipe.
Well, I don't understand. Is it pretty much we're annexing Ville's Road to be able to get the city back to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Another alternate way to do that would be to annex the right-of-way of Bradyville Pike in order to get to the subject property. That would be an option.
It makes sense. That helps me understand. I was trying to go connect the dots.
Yeah, I mean, we had an annexation petition for a property that was not contiguous with the city limits, and so at that point we have to try to figure out how to structure the annexation study so that it is contiguous, and present that to Planning Commission and City Council, and so if there is if there's additional direction that the City Council could give us, we'd be happy to take it back and discuss with the applicant.
My just thought, and this is looking at everything, I mean, when you look at the property we voted on back in November, it's contiguous to Stonegate, or I can't remember what that subdivision is. That's Stonegate.
Yeah, Stonegate.
They all go together there. This is really stretching to get brought into the city that far away with no contiguous. That's my thought. I mean, we got to look at how we provide service, and then not to mention the liability that we bring on when we annex a road that is not going to be used. But every time that there's a wreck or a flooding issue or a drainage issue out there, they're going to be calling the city saying, "When are y'all going to upgrade Bill's Road?" Those are my concerns.
So, just for my clarification, so that we can bring it back when it's appropriate or in a format that may be more appropriate, would you like to see the study area in a different, structured differently, or would you like more information on the maintenance of Beals Road? I'd certainly be happy to have Mr. Huddleston or Mr. Griffith provide information on that. If you want to keep the study area in its current with its current boundaries, be happy to do whatever y'all wish.
I remember back years ago when Mayor Bragg would go into his talk about, you either want density or you want sprawl. You pick which one you want. And, I think in the city we've said we're okay with density. That's why we're doing 6,000 square foot lots or 55 foot wide lots. But when I look at this looks like sprawl. I mean, this is extending a very dense subdivision 2 miles away that we can't figure out we can't figure out is going to be very hard to service. So that I'm not sure we can't annex from Beals Road with all the county residents. I assume that they won't be lining up to want us to annex them.
Right. It would be a matter of annexing the right-of-way of Bradyville Pike if we structured it differently.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're always going to have this problem since we can't annex anymore. And I think this is not the first time this has come up. Mr. Whitaker, would you please come to the mic, sir? Have we not had this same case before on another piece of property?
We have, and part of our thing, if I can have that put back up on the screen just a moment. When we were looking at this area, a few things, Mayor and Council, that we were trying to consider is, as you very well know, we cannot go in and forcibly annex anything anymore. We know we're limited on future property. And the growth of our city, there's quite a bit of property on out Beals Road as you go on out, large acreage tracts. As Mr. Blomley had explained, the property that's actually north of this it appeared the flag Mr. Blomley talked about. We've had 3 inquiries on that property, and what we know is that in the future they're going to be coming to us to ask for annexation to bring that in the city. You can see it is contiguous. You see right there it says city limits right above. If that property was in today, this property would be contiguous. It's just a matter of time till they request that, and whether it gets approved or not would be up to the Plan Commission and naturally City Council. But what we do know, near future, that parcel will probably come in. We can annex out non-contiguous now. So this appeared to be a good project. The reason they do come to us in regards to doing a step system, and that's what we have to do out here, as opposed to going county, is because of density. We let them have more density, which gets more yield. And to be honest with you, if we miss the opportunity today to annex this development, it's gone forever. There's no way we will ever be able to bring it in. Going out Beals Road now, before the property to the north comes in, that was just a way for us to obtain. Naturally, if this body doesn't feel like it's time for that, we understand. But I just want to let you know that was kind of our thought process of bringing, because there's large acreage tracts and some beyond this as well that probably, if these 2 were to come in, that they would be looking at. And we do require the property in question could not get access to Beals Road due to the problems they encountered in developing on the back. It's just so rough. That's why the density is so low. Back part, we wanted to have access to Beals Road, actually, and if we had, we would have required them to do some improvements on Beals Road for that stretch of Beals Road, actually. And whether they did it today or whether they actually paid in lieu of, we'd want to collect for that. But as Mr. Blumey asked, just give us some guidance. We'll be happy. And Mr. Smotherman, if you'd want us to, I think your recommendation is wait until that parcel, I think that's orange. I'm not good with colors. But the orange property, what's held that up is he is getting easements to run the water line to that property. Last time I talked with him, he said he had secured those easements. So hopefully, is that what you...
It's been a month or 2 since I've talked to Mr. Friedsam. And the last time I talked to him a month or two ago, he was still working on getting that water line easement.
So when he gets that easement, he has full intent, he's invested a lot in that development, the one in the orange, and he has full intentions of coming through, going through second reading. But just let us know how you want to proceed. I just wanted to make sure you understood what our thinking was on this property.
So make sure that I understand this. I'm sorry if I should understand this already, but why would we go over Veals Road instead of going out Bradeville Pike? It seems like the one that I remember that we've done before, we spider-legged out 99, if I'm recalling correctly.
We could do either. We could actually have extended on out Bradeville Pike.
Do we take on more cost, risk, or whatever, because that's a bigger state road or anything like that than we do if it's...
Here's what we've learned about not taking in intersections in parts of roads to get to property. Unfortunately, we were involved in a suit one time because we didn't take the property in front of it, so we have learned we annexed typically the road adjacent to it. And if there's an intersection, we like to control those intersections for future. Would we have intentions in the future as more development out Veals Road, if we were to bring it in, would we want to straighten that skewed angle out? Absolutely, we would at some point in time in the future. But we were just anticipating bringing in the parcel to the north, so that's why we went out Veals Road instead of going down out Bradeville Highway. It could be done either way.
I'd like to figure out a way to make this thing work. I guess, the reason I would second a deferral would just be to give us a little time to talk through and figure out how does this one look if we come out Bradeville Pike, and get some more information kind of on the likelihood of the other properties and that sort of thing, which is,
And the reason I am wanting to defer it is because if we did decline it, then it would have to go completely back through the process again. And I don't want it to have to go through the Planning Commission again if there's an opportunity that we can resolve this concern that we have. So that's the reason for
Do you
my
think
motion.
a week or two is going to make a difference in
No.
having the capability to do this?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We'll be happy to talk to the
Maybe
applicant.
find a good way to come back and let us know, hey, here's how we're going to do that. Because I do think looking at the plan book, I mean, it's consistent with what we've been approving. But trying to figure out, my only concern is just, if you said that other piece of property that it's already in the process and here's what we're doing, but that's just my concern.
Yes, sir. We'll be happy to talk to the applicant and come back.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to defer. Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. So, Mr. Tyndall, will that eliminate C, D?
That'll defer everything.
Okay, so C, D, and E have all been deferred as well. We'll now consider recommendations of the Transportation Director regarding State Industrial Access Program grant requests through TDOT for Sazerac Distillery Development of Public Road Resolution 18R08.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. The Industrial Highway Act of 1959 authorized Tennessee Department of Transportation to contract with cities and counties for the development of industrial highways to provide access to industrial areas and to facilitate the development and expansion of industry within the state of Tennessee. TDOT implements the Industrial Highway Act through the Department's State Industrial Access Program. The Department will consider and approve industrial highways based on project eligibility, economic criteria, physical constraints, and availability of funding. An industrial highway is defined as any road or street designated and located to provide access to an industry site or industrial park. An industrial highway cannot be constructed on private property and must be a public road open to traffic. The typical section funded by TDOT for the industrial highway project is two 12-foot wide lanes with 4-foot wide gravel shoulders. Additional design features can be requested and paid for by the applicant. The proposed roadway extension we're looking at would be approximately 5,700 feet in length to include a 5-lane cross-section with curb and gutter. It will also be designed for future multi-use path and sidewalk features, all within a proposed 100-foot right-of-way instead of 90, I think, which was in your package. As part of the final SIA application package, the city will need to provide a resolution of support for this project. City staff has recently contacted TDOT's State Industrial Access Division and provided the department with preliminary data to evaluate this request. After review of the information, TDOT's comments were favorable, and potential funding will be based on the evaluation of the full SIA application. So staff recommends approval to apply for the TDOT's SIA access grant to supplement funding sources for the construction of Sazerac Public Road Project. As such, we would also request approval of Resolution R18-R-08 for the grant application submittal. I'm available for questions.
Any questions for our Transportation Director?
Can we move for approval?
Yes.
I will.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll now consider, thank you, Mr.
We have to approve the resolution next, correct?
I think that's what we just did.
You do both.
It didn't get read, but it was intended. We understood.
Yeah,
We good?
I think you're good.
All right.
Yeah. Just for the record, we just voted on Resolution 18R08. I should have read that. Mr. Lance pointed that out. So I appreciate that, Rick. Should have done it earlier. Consider recommendations of our Deputy City Attorney regarding the 8th Amendment to Agreement for Sale and Purchase of Real Estate, approval of sale Lot 4 of the Phoenix subdivision.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to have Mr. Gore teach me someday how to put a PowerPoint on here. It doesn't look like the photo I had is going to come up, but what we have tonight, I have two items. The first one is to request approval of an 8th Amendment to a agreement for purchase and sale of property in the Gateway. Back in 2004, there was a large tract, several lots that were sold to Phoenix Development. Okay, there. Believe it or not, it's on. All right. The property we're talking about is the one with the red X on it, which is here at the on the river. The property is behind Medical Plaza 1 and 2, and next to the Vanderbilt Hart office building, which is immediately to the right. Over further to the left is the Oak Shopping Center, and of course to the top is the hospital. A large tract here was sold to Phoenix. That project contract was assigned to GOM Associates. There were a number of amendments to the contract as the size of the lots shifted, the proposed uses shifted, and ultimately then the property, the contract was assigned to Bob Biskin and his partner, and they actually then purchased property and began to develop. There was a 6th Amendment that where just before the Biskins acquired Lot 4, that where they agreed that they would follow through our gateway process with a potential user or a potential purchaser for the property that's now Lot 4, where the red X is. The Biskins now have a purchaser for that property, and the The use of that is going to be a corporate headquarters for a small investment company, a company that will have in the realm of 16 or so employees, relatively highly paid for our city. According to the letter from their attorney, the executives will be from the 160 to the 350,000 annual salary range. They have a plan for a one-story office building that has been approved, initially approved by the Gateway Commission, by the Design Review Commission, and also initially approved by the Planning Commission. It's set for final approval by both those bodies in the near future. What the owners of the property are requesting that the council agree to the 8th Amendment, which will allow this, approve this transaction to sell to this buyer, and also will, by which the city will agree to eliminate its clawback provision that's in the current contract. There's no immediate fiscal impact to the city, but as the managers of the property that's in the Gateway, and particularly in the Gateway 3 area, we'll be approving this transaction. Future fiscal impact will have property taxes off of a substantial office building in the Gateway area. The city managers agree with this recommendation, and the Gateway Commission also met on April 11th and recommended approval. So what we're asking for is approval of the 8th Amendment to the purchase agreement, which includes the release of our clawback provision, our right to buy the property back, and also then it will approve the sale of the property to this user. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Are we selling the property for, I guess what we consider asking price or not? I mean, what's the...
Well, we aren't selling.
The property.
What agreement are you saying we'd have to approve?
I'm sorry?
What agreement are we approving? You said the sale of the property agreement?
We will be approving the sale by Bob Biskin to an entity that is going to, build on the property and occupy it and use it.
Wow.
Which we have a contractual right under our original sale of the property from back in 2004. We still have the contractual right to approve the use of the property. So it will be used as a corporate headquarters for an investment company.
We've done this.
Are they...
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Are they new jobs or jobs that are already here?
These will be new jobs. This company will be relocating just from the metro Nashville area. We will be relocating here to Murfreesboro.
You're wanting us, because I assume we sold this property back in
04. Well, but the contract was in 04. We actually sold the property in 2008.
Right.
But as it has sat vacant since that time, and our contractual right to approve the ultimate use of the property remains intact. So that
we're waiving our clawback with this. So if something happens that this does not go through, then we're waiving that clawback.
I'm sorry, I really didn't state that quite right. The clawback will not be waived until the closing. Okay. So if this current transaction fails for some reason, we will still have our contractual right to repurchase the property. But upon the closing of the sale to this buyer, our right to repurchase will go away.
One last question: what happens if the owner sells the property to the buyer, or the buyer never builds the building?
The buyer is under I'm trying to remember what the provisions of his proposal to us are. They have, I'm not sure if there's a time commitment on their their purchase, their construction.
I'm not saying that this applicant would do this, but there are ways to get away from the city's clawback by selling that property to someone else.
So they could close on it, and then they could turn around and sell it to somebody else, and then we would be basically giving up our control over what goes there? Is that what's
correct?
I'd have to look. I don't have those letters in the file, I do not believe.
I think this goes back to, there's been some.
I'm sorry?
I think this goes back to where, back during the gateway phase, that there was a percentage of medical and hotel and what was going to be done in this property. Didn't it come through many years ago and there wanted to be medical or something that would, so all the property owners in that area, we have said, especially on that side of the road, hey, you can't put any more medical on that side of the road. And we've said it's got to be something else. So theoretically, if we waived our clawback, someone transferred the property to another property owner, they could put a medical building up where we've told a lot of people that they couldn't do that because we would be relinquishing that clawback.
That would be possible, but the other buildings that are built there could be converted to medical offices and be built as well. So as long as it's built up to the standards, we really don't maintain any control over subsequent use of the property anyway.
They would still be subject to the Planning Commission and the DRC's review. So
they still have to meet
some process in place for whatever goes on that.
Gateway standards. Yeah, they still have to. We're not waiving any of that. They still have to meet those.
It would still, yes, still requires full DRC as well as Planning Commission review of the plans for the building, for any building that's built there. And as a 2-acre site, while it certainly could be a site for another medical office building, it would not, with the parking required for medical buildings, it would be a pretty small medical office building with 2 acres. The building they have planned is about 11,000 square feet, and they have a potential for about a 4,000 square foot addition to that.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Ives?
I'm struggling with a single-story building in this area because most of the buildings that are around this property are more than 1 story, aren't they? And we're only creating 16 jobs, which, I mean, they're good-paying jobs. I hate to turn down 16 good-paying jobs, but at the same time, there's only 16 of them. Is there a better use for this property than what we're looking at here, or is this just what we're going to settle for and say it's okay?
I can say that the office building proposed on this site is very unique. It is very customized to the firm that is looking to build it. It has design features that you would not find in a typical office structure. It is adjacent to the first daycare center that was located in the gateway, which is to date, I think, the only pitched roof building in the gateway.
You got a live hospice.
Yes, that's correct. So it's hard to say that there couldn't be another use on 2 acres that wouldn't be more valuable, but this is a unique structure and fairly unique jobs coming to the gateway. And this lot was originally approved back in, I believe, in the 2004 and 2005 timeframe for residential lofts, which would certainly not be a job creator. But this was approved. This area was approved for construction of residential lofts. So, you know, a substantial business there is, I think, very much of an improvement over residential lofts. Not that we don't need more residents in the gateway area. The other aspect that DRC talked a lot about the 1-story aspect of this, and conclusion was that the shape of the building and the look of the building was made up for it. It's got some high ceilings. It's not going to look like a 2-story office building, but it's got heights to it.
Is there a way? I mean, I think the people, the applicant, I think they should be able to sell their property. We had those. We had those requirements in there. Is there a way that you can structure this if we approve it, that if they transfer the property and for some reason that project does not get does not come to fruition, that clawback would kick back into effect. Is there a way that you could word that?
Yes, there is, and if that's your condition, then we'll have to go see if they'll agree to it. They may not. But we certainly can go back and talk with them.
If they're planning to do the project, why would they not agree to that? That seems...
There's a potential, I think, for them to have a financial a problem with getting financing for the building with the clawback. That's at least a potential for it. But
But it shouldn't be a...
We could also waive it at start of construction or something like that. We could.
If they're going to do the project, then it shouldn't be, the clawback shouldn't be the clawback is only if the project does not come to fruition. So there shouldn't be a financing issue on a clawback if the project's going forward. It would just be if they bought the property and the project didn't go forward, then that could be an issue with the clawback. But
we can certainly go back to them.
The reason I ask that is I think what I would be concerned with is a piece of property that we've had 8 amendments on the contract, which means we've kept extending this out, that if something happened that we relinquish all of our city interest in what we agreed, or the council agreed back in 2004 or 2006, we're going to waive that. And we put that in place for a reason back 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And so when that goes away, that's gone away forever. And we required that for everyone else that's in that area. So on those clawbacks. So I think it's great to get the jobs, and I think that's what our number one goal should be. But if something happens that doesn't occur, the city needs to be protected.
We'll go back. We'll go back to them. I understand.
Seems reasonable. I think it's fair.
So if I would we can accept that condition on the approval, and with our assurance to you that that'll be the 8th Amendment will be modified to include that requirement.
I'm going to make a motion to approve with the condition that the modification be made that if the development is not developed as proposed currently, then the clawback clause would go back into effect and the city would retain its rights to control the decisions made in the future.
Yeah, I think the developer and the landowner is probably going to want it definitive. We could probably structure it it could be extinguished at time of issuance of a building permit. At that point in time, they've invested so much money to get to that point, they're not going to not build. So
absolutely.
That seems like a good break point.
That sounds fair.
Building's fully designed now.
That's very fair. And and I would relate to them. We're very excited that they're coming, but we have to be fair to what we've done in the past with everyone that's out there. I have a motion and a second. Ms. Wright, call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Now I have acquisition of electric easements for Murfreesboro Electric Department by condemnation.
Thank you once again, Mayor. MED needs easements for moving its electric lines in connection with the State Route 99, with the New Salem Highway widening. They have already obtained a number of easements. These particular easements are from commercial areas, commercial properties out there that, for the most part, have out-of-state owners, and MED has not been successful in getting responses from them. We will continue to try to obtain easements by consent, but we're at a time when we need to ask for authorization to go ahead and file condemnations if need be, so that we can make sure we have the easements within sufficient time to for project construction. So that's why we're asking at this time that we be approved to go ahead and file condemnation on for these electric easements if we need to.
Any questions? Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright?
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Mr. Ives, thank you very much. All right, you now have two.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. You have two recommendations for the Urban Environmental Commission, Ms. Jamie Averwater and Mr. Casey Brown.
Move for approval.
Second.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. You have one beer permit.
We have a market changing ownership at 5409 Northwest Broad Street. They do need to finish up their building codes inspections, but everything else about their application is in order. Be glad to answer any questions. We do recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Wade. Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Any statements?
Not tonight.
Any other business from the staff of the City Council? All right. All right, seeing none, we'll stand adjourned.